Right, you lot, toast has gone on now, so you've got 2 seconds to be down the stairs.
Hi, I'm Katie. Welcome to family breakfast at my house. So what are we all eating this morning? It's the usual chaos.
Right, okay. Who's for tea? And 2 is for toast, and who wants cereal?
My sister Neve likes toast as she's trying to finish her homework.
Alright, okay, no problem.
My sister Grace likes rice puffs as she's trying to remember where she left her PE kit.
Okay, good girl.
I myself like a healthy bowl of porridge, but today I want to find out why my mum has been complaining about the weekend visit to the supermarket that has put all the breakfast food on the family table. So Mum, why were you upset about the shopping bill this weekend?
Well, Kate, it's kind of like this. I've got a budget and I stick to it. But every week I seem to be going over my budget and getting less and less in my shopping trolley. And I just cannot believe from week to week how much prices are changing. Take, for instance, your lunch rolls. 25p each per roll, which only a couple of weeks ago I was paying 12p each per roll. And you add all that up and, you know, between all of you and see how much that costs. And that's just one thing for one day. And you look at everything else that's on the table and see how much it's increased.
If your household is anything like mine, you'll know that rising prices are affecting us all. But you may not give much thought to exactly what it takes to put food on your table. In fact, like me, you might take it all for granted, but you'll be surprised to learn just what's involved. At every stage in the process, there are a number of factors which all have an impact on what's available to the consumer like us and how much it costs. Today, I'm going to be investigating the issues behind headlines about the rises in food prices. Join me on a journey as I found out just what is costing us more and why. My first port of call is a farm in Lincolnshire where I've arranged to meet farmer Janet Godfrey. Hi Janet, thank you for meeting me. So what produce do you have on your farm?
We have all sorts of things. We also have cereals, which go into your cereals for breakfast, like Weetabix and mueslis, things like that. But our main produce is pigs, which goes to produce bacon for breakfast, and hams. We have potatoes, peas, other things that people would eat any time of the day.
So Janet, you've lived and worked on farms all your life, but what particular challenges would you say farmers in the UK are facing right now in relation to food production?
I think the biggest challenges are the cost of production. The price of feed for our pigs has absolutely gone through the roof just recently, and it's difficult for us to get enough profit to keep in the business. I think the main issue is the price of oil, which makes all of our inputs go up.
How exactly do oil prices affect the farming business?
Well, farming is highly mechanised these days, and we depend hugely on the fuel that goes into the tractors and all the machinery that we use. It's just one extra add-on cost to all our other costs. And also we have to transport our goods all over the country, so being in rural areas we have to move it into cities to get processed.
So we've all noticed the weather we've had this summer. Has that had any effect on farming?
I'm afraid it has. We've had a really wet summer and it's been really difficult for us to get our wheat harvest in store, and what we have harvested has been very wet, so we've actually had to dry it, which has meant more fuel costs for us. It's been coming in very wet off the fields through the combines, and we just have to heat it up and dry it out before we can actually store it. And then we have higher storage costs as well.
There are many different stages in the food production process that deliver food from field to fork. How often do we actually think about all the hard work it takes to grow, harvest and prepare wheat for our breads and cereals in our nicely packaged breakfast foods, or the diet that healthy dairy cows or chickens need to produce our milk and eggs? The wheat from our farmers' fields is delivered to mills like this one to be turned into flour for bread, as well as lots of other foods like pies, biscuits and cakes. I'm here at a flour mill in North London to see the next step in the process that meant my family could happily eat their toast this morning. Let's find out what's having an impact on food prices at this stage of the production. So David, we need flour for all sorts of food. As someone who mills that flour from wheat, have you noticed any differences in the cost of your particular area of food production?
Well, the main cost of producing flour comes from wheat, and over the last 12 months or so, that has increased substantially. And there's lots of reasons for that, but mainly it's about supply and demand. The demand for grain worldwide, globally, has increased substantially. First of all, demand is growing because there's more people in the world. Something like the population of the world is growing by 80 million a year, and all these mouths need to be fed. So we're using more grain to do that. In addition to that, there are other countries, such as India and China, where their diets are changing and they're becoming much more meat-based diets. And to produce meat, you need to feed cows, chickens, pigs, wheat. They use a lot of grain in those diets. Over the last few years, the world has produced not enough grain. The consumption is outstripping the supply of wheat. So our stock levels, world stock levels, have decreased each year. And that's because of things like, well, climate change is having an effect. We're having poorer harvests from time to time. In addition to that, more countries are using grain to produce biofuels, and that's for producing ethanol for fuel. And that's taking land away from producing food, grain for food, and into feed.
The farmer I met in Lincolnshire, Janet, was telling me how oil prices were causing her own costs to rise. What about your operational costs?
Well, certainly after wheat, our next biggest cost is energy. We use a lot of electricity in the mill to power the machines, and oil prices obviously had a direct impact on diesel, which we need to distribute our products into the market.
So how does all this affect the consumer?
Well, sometimes it takes a little while to get those cost increases coming through to the final consumer, but ultimately it's got to lead to higher food prices because it's affecting the cost of production, and you'll see this on the shelves of the supermarkets with higher bread prices and higher prices of products that use flour.